You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI, Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And at the beginning of the night, I was saying how people outside of Southern California, people who are outside of California, have wrongly characterized these fires, especially Pacific Palisades, as somehow an indictment of the rich, or it only was impacting rich, wealthy people, celebrities. And even inside of Pacific Palisades, if you know the area, that couldn't be further from the truth. But how it's being characterized, and I know it's anecdotal and the social media can't put too much stock in it, but I do think that it shapes a perception which is just truly inaccurate about who is being harmed, who is being displaced, who is being evacuated. And I told you yesterday how the national news was at least a day behind trying to catch up to what was happening here. And they're still behind because it's not where they live. They're only getting a very surface view. You know, they're getting the pictures. They may talk to a few people, but they don't know what it's like for you and me on an hour-to-hour basis. And it's not their job. They're just trying to give you the big picture, pun intended. But for many people, it's the wrong picture. They think it's only impacting a certain demographic. And what's being less covered in the national media, at least, is what's happening in Altadena, what's happening in Pasadena, the different fires where clearly it's not super wealthy folks in $2 and $3 million homes. It's folks like you and me. And no disrespect, if you got a $2 or $3 million home, God bless you. God bless you. I'm just saying the multitude of people who are impacted, the multitude of the people who've lost their homes, lost their businesses, middle class.
It's interesting because a friend of mine, and you know her, Samantha. Who she was staying in the Bay Area, and of course, all of her family is here. And when she was seeing on television, at least, about the coverage of the story, she knew it was bad, but didn't have an idea of the reach of the fires. And of course, just seeing that, you know, areas like Altadena and Pasadena had been hit, she knew immediately she had to come home and take care of her family. When she arrived back here in Southern California, she turned on the radio. She got in the car and turned on the radio and could not find any coverage about what was happening in Altadena. She needed the latest. She needed updates. She's looking all over the radio, station to station. She said, why is nobody talking about what's happening in Altadena? She said, I need to go to 570. Or 640. She turned on right when you and I were talking about the damage and what was happening in Altadena. And she stayed locked in, and she was telling everyone, tune into KFI right now. They're letting you know what's happening in Altadena. They're letting you know what you need to do, where you need to go, where the talking about going to the convention center.
You're talking about actual information that people need.
Information. She's like telling me, turn it, go to it right now. This is what you need to know, because it wasn't happening anywhere else. It's just, to me, it's the power of what we do and how we delve into every little thing that's happening, the minutia of all these fires and how they're affecting everyone, and how important it is to relay this information in real time as we get it, not jumping on stuff that we aren't sure is real or not, but as we get this information and it's verified, relaying that and connecting our listeners from all walks of life. There are individuals who are extremely wealthy in Altadena and individuals who are super lower middle class who are all listening to the same broadcast saying, thank you for this information. I did not know where to go in Pasadena to evacuate. I didn't know what resources were available. And this is why we win in what we're doing. These are those times. We have a lot of fun on Later with Mo Kelly. We joke and shoot the ish all the time. But at times like this, this is when we excel, because this is when the news matters most.
I don't know if you heard earlier, Tuala, I was saying that my approach is I think about my family, the people who have been displaced, like you, for example, and I think about what is it they would need to know? What would they most desire to know? Where to go? How to get food? How to get short-term shelter? How they can be made whole? How can they get in touch with the federal government to start the FEMA process? Now, how anyone else wants to look at this moment is up to them, but I think I have a responsibility. I really do. I have a responsibility to take care of as many people I can with the resources and the tools that I have. That's all I want to do. And the national news media, they really can't do that because they can't speak directly to the needs of the specific communities. They're not going to take the amount of time to talk about where to take large animals, where to take small animals, how you can get these free meals in different portions of the city, how you can get your family from one place to another if you need special assistance. National news media is not going to do that. That's why we at KFI are sometimes painstaking in the small minor details, so you know where to go, how to get there, what is being offered. You know, we had some fun last segment talking about Sizzler, but that's real information. Some people are going to get fed with money they didn't have because they were listening last segment.
Yeah.
And people are being impacted outside of Pacific Palisades. No disrespect to those who have been displaced, who've had to be evacuated, who may have lost their homes. But there are a number of communities right now going through it, and all of them deserve our due attention.
Absolutely. This is why we are here. And I love when Mark Ronner chimes in, is right there with his following up with the detailed super news. I'm really proud of us right now. I'm really proud of this moment for being here and providing all this information. And even for me, things that I need places where I can take, our cats. And then I'm like, right. I had to go back and listen to the podcast.
Pasadena Humane.
It's like, boom, this is where we can take the cats and they will be safe. And we know this is why I'm overwhelmed, and it still hasn't sunk in what I am dealing with, but this helps me through it.
I'll give you a perfect example. There are those individuals who may have everything that they own in their car, or they may have to move as much as they can out of their house and they have nowhere to put it. Did you know that U-Haul is opening its facilities across Southern California for 30 days of free self-storage to victims? That helps someone. The U-Box Container Disaster Relief Program is also available to assist evacuees and affected families. That helps people right where they are. Uber and Lyft are helping evacuated residents with free rides to shelter locations. Evacuees can redeem a free Uber ride up to $40 by applying the promo code WILDFIRE25 in the wallet section of their Uber app before requesting a ride to a designated shelter location. For Lyft, the promo code is CA Fire Relief 25. Let me say that again. CA as in California, CA Fire Relief 25. That's the code for a free ride worth up to $25. Each user can use the code for 2 rides maximum. Think about Pacific Palisades in that area, all those abandoned cars. All of a sudden, you're without transportation, and you may need to get yourself, maybe a loved one, someone else to a shelter. This is information I think we're obligated to make sure that you know and have available. And you may not remember all of this, but it'll be up on the podcast as well. KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. I'm going to be with you all evening up until midnight, as we have been earlier in the week. So keep it right here. We have more good information, which is going to help you and your family.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. Mo Kelly here. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Give you a brief update. The Kenneth Fire has burned more than 1,000 acres, but it is up to 35% containment. That's some good news. And the Palisades fire has burned 20,000 acres, but it is at least up to 6% containment. So firefighters are making some headway on some of these fires. And I made mention of what I thought was a pretty good press conference, top to bottom, as far as information from civic leaders, from law enforcement, from fire department, first responders, as far as what we need to know as far as evacuation areas, contact information if you have certain needs which have yet to be met, some sort of indication of what to expect in the coming days. We heard Sheriff Luna talk about the curfew. Mark Ronner even talked about it. It is implemented in the evacuation areas, and it's from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So understand, if you are in an evacuation area, you are under curfew, meaning you cannot enter in that area. And if you do during the curfew of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., you will be subject to arrest. And at this press conference earlier today, we heard from Jim McDonald, LAPD chief, told you about Sheriff Luna, also LA County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. We'll hear from her in a little bit. John O'Brien, who's the chief deputy of emergency operations, but also LA Mayor Karen Bass spoke, and I will leave it up to you as far as how you want to interpret it, but here is what she had to say earlier today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and let me just thank all of the leaders that are here with us today. I think it is a perfect example of how we are speaking with one voice. We will unify our city, we will get through this crisis, and we will rebuild a better Los Angeles. First and foremost, of course, my thoughts are with the thousands of Angelenos impacted by these continuing fires. There is a new fire, unfortunately, in West Hills, pushing into Ventura County, and we are expecting this fire to rapidly spread due to high winds. This is a reminder that this is a very dynamic situation that can change quickly. The priority for all Angelenos remains stay safe and please follow directions from the public safety officials. When you are told to evacuate, please evacuate. When you don't evacuate, you compromise the abilities of the first responders, one, to address this crisis. You put yourself in danger and you put others in danger. Again, we know that this is an active situation. LAPD will be assisting with evacuations, and I want to thank the firefighters from all over the state and frankly from many other areas who have come to respond to this unprecedented situation. Now, for an update on this most recent fire, I'd like to call Chief Crowley.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Kristen Crowley, Fire Chief of Los Angeles City Fire Department. We are now actively engaged in a new brush fire. We're calling it the Kenneth Fire in the West Hills area of Los Angeles on the border of Ventura County. This fire was over 50 acres upon arrival, with the potential for rapid growth over the next hour. Over 60 fire companies from the Los Angeles City Fire Department, LA County Fire Department, and Ventura County Fire Department were initially dispatched to the specific incident. Additional resources have been requested and are en route. The fire started in the city of Los Angeles and burned rapidly into the county of Ventura. Los Angeles County Fire Department and Ventura County Fire Department are in unified command. The LAFD is now an assisting agency. There are currently immediate evacuation orders in place south of Van Owen, north of Burbank, east of Valley Circle, and west of County Lane Road. An evacuation warning is in place west of Valley Circle, north of Satakoy, east of Woodlake, and south of Burbank. I will now be providing a quick update on the Palisades fire. Current acreage is 19,978. There are currently 5,316 structures that were damaged or destroyed. And unfortunately, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families. We do have a confirmed 2 fatalities that are now due to this incident. In closing, I want to make sure that we thank the residents of Los Angeles for remaining vigilant, and this new fire shows that we are absolutely not out of this extreme weather event. I personally want to take and show, I should say, my thanks and gratitude to all of our firefighters, our first responders, and for their families for all the sacrifices, their relentless efforts in battling this historic fire. And I should make that plural, historic fires. Next up, we're going to bring back the mayor.
Thank you, Chief Crowley, for your leadership, and thank you for that update. We'll have critical updates on the state of this emergency broadly, including resources for Angelenos who have been impacted. Again, the priority of all Angelenos remains to stay safe and to follow directions from public safety officials. I was at the command post for the Palisades fire with Governor Newsom and other federal partners earlier today, and we talked about strategies to provide relief. First, I just got off the phone with President Biden, and right before this press conference, I also spoke to Vice President Harris earlier today. Earlier today, the President announced the federal government would pay for 100% of disaster response costs from the wildfires in this area. This is unprecedented because usually it is not 100%. As the FEMA Administrator Chris Wall will discuss, new resources are also available for impacted Angelenos to recover from this emergency. So thank you, FEMA Administrator, for being here today and for your continued partnership on behalf of the White House. Second, as you heard from the update from the county, at the Eaton Fire Post, in coordination with the County of LA, we have requested the National Guard, along with the sheriff, and the county has implemented a curfew in all burn areas. And actually, let me correct that and say that the county is looking at a curfew, but has not implemented it yet. In Los Angeles, we have had evacuation orders in place in the Palisades and in Sylmar. Those evacuation orders have the force of a curfew, meaning you must leave and you cannot come back into the area, period, 24 hours a day. We have to protect the area, especially from those properties that remain. I've joined the sheriff in inviting the National Guard to take on non-emergency roles and provide us with resources to keep the burn area secure so that our frontline firefighters and police officers can focus on saving lives. So let me be clear, there's going to be zero tolerance for anybody that would be, I don't even know how to say this, but that would dare to enter houses or loot property or anything from the individuals or from structures that remain standing. I was with DA Hochman this morning, and he made it very clear that if anybody is involved in looting or any property damage, that he is ready to prosecute to the full extent of the law. So my team is in coordination with the Adjutant General who heads the National Guard, and I've spoken with the governor about the National Guard to take on specifically non-emergency roles to free up our firefighters and officers to do the life-saving work that they do in the city so that we are sure to have enough resources to surge our first responders so that they can focus on the life-saving work. Third, we're already looking ahead to aggressively rebuild. The city of Los Angeles will lead in this effort in the areas that are impacted by the city. We are going to clear the red tape and unnecessary delays and cost and headaches that people experience in ordinary times so that we can rebuild your homes quickly. We're going to clear the way to rapidly rebuild our neighborhood infrastructure, which means roads, sidewalks, street lights, and utilities. We will clear the way to rebuild and open our small businesses and provide assistance to make it through these closures. This is a massive effort, but we will be ready, and we will get the job done by turning away from the usual city system and moving forward in a new direction. LA has to be strong, united. We will reject those who seek in this emergency, when lives are at stake and lives have been lost, we will reject those who seek to divide us and seek to misinform because as evidenced by the leadership standing here today, we will be united. We will rebuild our city, and we will do what is ever is necessary to get us past this crisis. And we can do that by being united.
That was Mayor Karen Bass earlier today from a press conference, which was around 5 p.m. It ran about 45 minutes. Give you an updated information on the Eaton fire. It has burned 13,690 acres, and it still sits at 0% containment. And when we come back, we hope to have an on-the-ground report from the Altadena, Pasadena area and what that actually looks like from inside the evacuation zone, so we can give you more information. Maybe you're concerned about whether your house is still there, whether there will be any chance for you to go back into that area anytime soon. We hope to get some specific information in the next segment, so keep it right here.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And right now we want to take you into some of these evacuation zones to give you a sense of what it feels like, what it looks like, some updated, a sense of what firefighters are dealing with. And Twala Sharp has a very special guest for us that he set up for us.
One of my very good friends, an individual who I've known close to 30 years now. He is a Dena native. He is a firefighter, and he is currently off duty and is taking his time out to let us know what it is that our first responders are facing, what they're dealing with, and what it's like trying to contain these blazes, but also what it's like as a citizen living in these areas. So, my man, thank you for joining us.
How you feeling, sir?
I'm very well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. And yes, we're intentionally not giving your last name. And yes, we're not telling people exactly where you work because we're not trying to get anyone in trouble. So we appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us a sense of what is really going on. Now, do I have it correct that you were first deployed to the Palisades fire?
No. That morning when I was on my way to work, before I was even up, that's when we got the emergency evacuation order for Altadena. So at that point, I got up, made a couple phone calls to neighbors to see if they got the notice, got my wife going to her parents' house and started knocking on doors. A lot of people in the area, they didn't know what was going on because about 6 p.m. earlier that day, all the power went out, all the internet went out. So a lot of people weren't aware. So when it happened, things moved fast. So I was knocking on doors to neighbors who weren't aware, helped a couple of people get out of their houses, and went to the station, grabbed my gear, and my crew kind of knew what was going on and that Altadena was now on fire. So they actually sent me home, and I came back with my gear. And I started helping over here.
Why do you think people may not have known about the evacuation order? Was it they weren't listening to or watching traditional news sources? It was not necessarily an alert that they got on their phone. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think in Altadena, a lot of people, they didn't have service. So, again, at 6 p.m. that night, all internet, all power went out, so people just weren't aware. They didn't have access, and Altadena doesn't have the best signal anyway. So everything was, okay, hey, this is a wind event, and we've seen these before, we'll be diligent, but when the fire broke out and you could see it on the hill, you know, that a lot of people weren't prepared for that, and it moved very quickly.
You were knocking on doors. Were people responsive? Were they willing to take you at your word? I'm quite sure they knew that you're a firefighter, but did they believe you when you were trying to convey the severity of it?
Yeah, because by that time, if you're living in Pasadena, you can simply look to the foothills and you can see the flame. You can see the wildfire moving. So everybody knew how serious it was right off bat.
Today is Thursday. I'm quite sure Altadena and Pasadena, to a certain degree, looked very different on Tuesday. How would you characterize the difference in then and now?
You know, my family's lived in Altadena for 75 years, and it's an absolute wasteland. Altadena is completely wiped, completely. There is nobody in Pasadena that doesn't have at least 5 friends or 5 family members who have not lost their homes. It's all gone. The aesthetic of Altadena is gone. Homes that you grew up in, that you have memories, corners that you remember walking on the way to school, are gone. I don't think, people's YouTube videos, Facebook videos give it justice. Just the wasteland and the gravity of what happened. And, I had the chance to drive from the east side of Altadena all the way over to the west side, and it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible.
The people, the friends, the family that you helped evacuate, to the best of your knowledge, did they go to shelters? Did they have somewhere to go? What were their circumstances generally like?
I think people were just in a panic, in a hurry to get out of the immediate area. I think people were just going to family members' home, family members' houses outside of Altadena, Pasadena. I don't think at that point people were aware of any kind of shelters at that point. People were just trying to get out of immediate danger.
You as a firefighter can look at this in a way that a layperson cannot. Can you liken what you've seen in Altadena with anything that you've experienced in your professional career?
I've never seen anything like that. I don't think any of us have ever seen something like that. That was 90 miles per hour winds.
Yes,
pushing a fire. That fire at that point, fire isn't burning up. It's burning horizontal, and it's just moving. It's being pushed by the wind, so it's going from one point to the next, one house to the next. And the embers are falling 3 and 2 blocks over. So now everything's catching its wave of fire. It's just moving. It's just sweeping. It covers so much ground so fast.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You said your company sent you home at the beginning of that day, knowing where you lived so you could help people right where you were. Have you engaged the fire since?
That night I went home, I was able to help save some houses on my block. I was able to kind of prep people's houses that did leave, and I told them, hey, I'm going to stay, and I'll take pictures of your houses. If anything changes, I'll let you know. And, me and another neighbor, we did the best, and, we stayed, and we did what we could, and we were able to help some people. But the whole area was dumped. There was no resources because there were multiple fires going all over the place.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with, we're intentionally withholding his last name. He is a firefighter locally. We're not saying with which department he's with, because obviously I'm quite sure their PIO wouldn't want him talking to us, but I thought it was important that we get some on the ground sense of what Altadena specifically looks like and what the people have dealt with. When do you think, well, let me put this another way. For as bad as it's been, we have not heard about a high number loss of life. Are you surprised in any way?
Well, I think we're still trying to wrap our hands around the gravity of what's going on. We just now got additional companies into the area. So now you see a very strong presence of fire companies here. Then you have to wait for the reports of the missing persons reports to come in. Hey, we haven't spoke to our grandmother or our mother in X amount of days. So all those people who fled the area, then you're going to get reports of missing people, and then they have to go to those areas. They have to search. You know, they have to call family, wait for somebody to actually start questioning where they are. So all this is going to be a process.
We know that that area is under a mandatory evacuation order. We know that that area is under a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. But we also know that people are curious about, to your point, loved ones who may not have responded. They're curious about the status of their homes, if there's anything left, if there's anything they can save. In a situation like this, despite the destruction, how long might it take before an all clear could be given for people to re-enter that area?
The area there's still active fire in the area. There's still open gas mains in the area. It's not safe. There's still down power lines in the area. As much as people want to be up here, it's still not safe. It's infrastructure that still needs to be built and repaired for people to be able to function and move around safely up here. It's going to take time.
Keep going with that. I'm quite sure people may not have thought about the other dangers which are associated with the disaster area. You mentioned gas lines. You mentioned down power lines. What other types of dangers or threats might there be for someone who, ill-advised, tries to get into the evacuation area?
There are so many different things that can kill you or injure you. So many different things, just a chance or a half-burned structure that the integrity is already weak, and you digging around, going inside that house, and the house could possibly collapse on you. There's so many unknowns. There's no way to properly answer that question because pretty much at this point, everything's destroyed, so everything can hurt you. Mm-hmm. Even the air. The air is terrible. If you don't have to be in the area, you shouldn't be in the area. If you have a headache, it's probably because you have carbon dioxide poisoning. Wear your mask. If you don't need to be here, you stay away. As much as you want to get up there to your property, this is going to take time.
What is the priority, as best you could glean, for firefighters? Obviously, they were trying to put out fires. Are they trying to protect certain structures? Are they trying to keep it away from certain houses? What's the thought process as far as a fire department when they're trying to battle multiple blazes like these?
Well, a company can only do the best they can do with the amount of resources that they have. So if you have a whole street going and one fire engine, not much is going to be able to be done until they get additional resources. So in that area, all of Altadena, with the limited amount of companies that are in that area, they were immediately overwhelmed. Immediately. So at that point, you're going to what you can save or what's directly in front of you. It's immediately overwhelming, and ultimately, the only thing that's going to help is more resources at that moment. But if a fire is skipping neighborhoods and streets over, you're racing against the winds, and the winds were going 80 miles an hour.
Can a company or multiple companies do anything when the fire starts skipping? They're not chasing the fire, are they?
They're trying to put out the fires when they start in the early stages, put it out so it doesn't grow into a big fire that they can't handle. That's what they're trying to do.
Since we know that we're all talking about limited resources to a certain degree give me your best guess estimate. How long are these shifts for these firefighters? How long are they on the front lines trying to fight these fires? Are we talking about 12 hours, 14 hours, longer?
Definitely longer. Definitely longer, especially in the early stages. And again, different departments, when these fires happen, different protocols fall in line.
Give me an example of just a scenario where, because of circumstances, those protocols might change as best you can.
If you have an immediate need, immediate threat to life and property, where you have multiple structures in jeopardy, then the resources that are in that area, they're going to go as long as they possibly can to save life and property. They're just going to do it. And then as other resources come in, those resources that were in the initial attack are going to be relieved and sent for rehab and rest.
I know that we have no business being in the evacuation zone because it's obviously dangerous to us as civilians and citizens. All we can do is get hurt or get killed. But I'm quite sure there are other reasons why we shouldn't be there, because it gets in the way of your efforts to save structures. And also, you can't do certain types of maneuvers if you suspect that someone's in a house, correct?
Yes. And for the most part, if you're blocking streets that are already damaged and are blocked by other debris, branches, and power lines, you're in the way. You're in the way, and you could limit and slow access to a fire that might be starting that we might be able to stop, or somebody who might be trapped.
I know it's one thing when you're fighting a fire in some other area of the city. You may not know anyone connected to the neighborhood, the community, the city, and you're just doing your job. But what are the emotions when you are confronting this in your own neighborhood with people you've known your whole life and seeing those houses that you've probably been inside as a kid or maybe as an adult go up in flames?
I think that to a certain extent, any first responder is going to have some level of PTSD. I think when it is your family or you are directly affected by whatever's in front of you, I think it all comes back. I think it all comes back in that moment. And it's just a swell of emotion that you kind of recognize what's happening, and you're trying to manage that emotion because you try to be methodical in your practice, how you attack a situation, but it hits 10 times harder because all of the previous trauma and things you've experienced come back in that moment, and you are overwhelmed momentarily.
Is it fair to say that firefighters across Southern California, regardless of the fire, are probably experiencing similar emotions as you are, even though they may not be fighting a fire in their particular community? They probably know of another community where they live close to, or they have close ties to, going through the same thing. My question is, are all these firefighters probably going through these same types of emotions right now?
Very much so. Very much so. Hands down. Everybody's feeling it. It's impossible not to. Southern California is burning.
Is it going to get any better tomorrow with this wind event, or is it looking like that it's probably going to be worse?
Sir, I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
And all I can say is thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for, running to the danger instead of running from the danger, protecting all of these people, during the worst moments of their lives with less thought about your own safety and your life. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Sir, thank you.
I'm Mo Kelly. We're going to continue our coverage of these fires all around Southern California and make sure we give you the information that you need first and foremost to make sure you and your family are safe. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
When fire strikes Southern California, KFI News is on it.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere.